Hello and welcome to Ready Bet Action. We're really excited to bring you our SEC preview show. This is our last college football preview show. We do have a special guest and a new member of the team joining us today. Mike.
What's
Mike,
up?
welcome to the team.
Man, I'm so psyched to be here.
we're pretty excited to have you. We need all your social handles and everything on here for when we blow up and become super popular. But Mike is
I
Georgia.
unfortunately only Instagram, so I don't know how helpful that's going to be for you right now.
That's totally fair. Yeah, Mike's a big SEC guy, comes from Georgia, the land of Georgia. So I'm sure there'll be some bias in some of these picks, but in the end, we're excited to have you and talk to you and have your SEC knowledge. Because to be honest, I just wait to watch the SEC until the end of the season. As someone who's not an SEC fan, I just assume they're over there dominating the rest of college football. So,
I mean, we all know that every team in the playoff is going to be from the SEC, so it's okay.
It might be, but we're not gonna waste any time. We're gonna dive right into it. This is our SEC betting guide and win totals show. We're mostly talking about win totals, but we'll have some other future bets for you. So hang with us here. If you don't want to listen to this whole thing, just fast forward to the end. You're not going to offend us, just as long as you download it and listen. That's great by me. So let's we're gonna go alphabetically, which this graphic is not alphabetical. We're gonna start with
I was just looking at that. I was like, wait, what?
It's not. It's just okay. Whatever was pulled. All right, let's talk about we're gonna look at these conference winner futures. This is a little small, probably for the viewing audience. That's my bad. You can see here though, Georgia's a pretty heavy favorite to win the SEC here, and then Texas, Alabama, and then kind of everybody else. We might see where there's some value. Do you all have? We've started every other show like this, so do y'all have anyone on this list that you like to put some money on, like you would put a little sprinkle on that's not named Georgia, that you actually like here?
You said not named Georgia. I'm out, bro.
I kind of figured.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's similar to when we were talking in the Big Ten, where Ohio State at plus 165 was just a smart bet because they're going to make it to the conference game and then you can hedge. SEC is a little bit different for me because I think the possibility of there being a little bit more power at the top of the conference. I think the top 2 or 3 in the Big Ten and the SEC can go blow for blow. But then after that, I mean, SEC's rolling out Ole Miss, LSU, Tennessee. Big Ten doesn't have that. So to me, it's a little bit tougher. I don't mind a Georgia bet. I like a Georgia bet. If I'm going to put a sprinkle somewhere else, there's 2 places I'm looking. One is Tennessee because the value is so good at plus 1,100. If Nico Iamaleava actually is as good as we think he could be, and no one actually is talking. Actually, a ton of people are talking about it, and everyone's saying no one's talking about it. But Tennessee's defense, their defensive ends, their edge rushers are elite. This is a very good team defensively, offensively. Dylan Sampson is an incredible running back. So I like a Tennessee sprinkle at plus 1,100 to go ahead and win the conference.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. You'll see a pick from me later about Tennessee to make the college football playoff. I think it's great. I think they have a chance, and it's mostly based on their schedule. So really the sprinkle on them to win the conference would be for them to get to the title game, and then maybe they somehow upset Georgia, even though they wouldn't be favorites in that game. But to throw $10 on 1,100, you who knows?
Carson Beck could be out. Yeah, I mean,
Mike's like, don't say those words.
Yeah, dude, you watch your mouth over there.
I also do like Alabama bid at plus whatever they were at 750 or something. Again, we'll talk about Alabama here soon as they are an A. They'll be up early, but I like them as well. Just at the value.
Awesome.
I mean, they're another one. I mean, their schedule is. I mean, it's not easy by any means, but compared to half the other SEC, it's really not that stout. So I don't know. We'll talk about it here in a minute, but it wouldn't surprise me. I think both of those are great picks. The Tennessee offense was
fun.
Dude, I think they averaged like 39 points a game every year under his leadership since last year, or except for last year. Like, that's just wild.
Is there a Tennessee Ole Miss game this year? Because like I don't remember if that's on the schedule or not. Because if there is, that'll be one to circle for offense. That'll be a lot of fun.
Well, we're gonna look at their
schedules. We'll get there. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's just jump right into it. I started in the pre-show combo talking about how I don't have, no one has any picks for Alabama, but Stefan was very vocal that he has a lot to say about Alabama. So Stefan, why don't you tell us about what you have to say about Alabama?
So the reason I don't have a pick for this is because in the state of Colorado, you cannot bet college player props, including the Heisman, which is just complete nonsense. But I would be, if I could be, betting Jalen Milroe to win the Heisman. Maybe I'll have to come down to New Mexico real quick and
now we can't do it
there at the casino. At the casino, even?
Casino does have Heisman odds. Yeah,
let's go. I'm going to be driving down for a visit and a Jalen Milroe future Heisman winner. Last time I checked, it was at like plus 1,100, I think. So great value there. I think if Kalen DeBoer can unlock his passing game just a little bit better, because he was already very good on the deep ball. But if that intermediate game can be improved upon even just a little bit with Jam Miller and company running the football, I think they're going to be outstanding. 247 Sport, actually, I forget who it is, but like the composite best teams, best programs out there came out today. And Alabama was ranked number 1, Georgia number 2, Ohio State number 3. So like their talent is there. Yes, they've had a lot of change, but I really like this team. Give me the over 9.5. I didn't say it before, but I've talked myself into it.
Hey, all right. He's going to make an official pick.
Over 9.5 plus 116. I like them to make the playoff at minus 110 too, but they're going to get the 10 wins. I see possibly, losing to Georgia. That's going to be tough, but you're at home. Traveling to Tennessee is going to be a really, really tough game. They lost last time they went there. You and I watched that one together, Eric, and then we jumped in the pool together in celebration.
That was awesome. That was awesome. Not the only thing that happened that night. Yeah.
Anyway, I'll stop talking. I love Alabama this year. They're kind of like, I'm a bandwagon Alabama fan, even though I hate Kalen DeBoer because of Washington. But
Mike just threw up in his mouth a little bit.
Our friendship just went down the drain a little bit, bro.
I have one thing to say, and then Mike, you can wrap us up if you have anything to say about Alabama, which is, I don't know, man. There's 5 games on here that are losable games for me for Alabama. Oklahoma's a bit of a stretch to say it's losable, but only because it's at Oklahoma. You got Georgia, Tennessee, Missouri, LSU, and Oklahoma. So to me, I don't feel comfortable betting it, but they very well might win over 9.5 games. I just don't like the schedule, Mike.
I don't know. I can go both ways. I've been burned by Alabama too many years in my history to say that they can't win 9.5 games. So there's part of that playing into it. I also think Missouri is a little overrated this year. We'll get to that later. So I could see that being losable. So it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, they were the number 1 offensive line in the country last year. And they're looking to repeat that. My only concern for them is what is their wide receiver going to look like? Their number 1 receiver from Washington had a total of like 400 yards last year. So I think Milroe can take a step up, but who the heck is he going to throw it to?
To be fair, Bernard was playing behind 3 dudes that just got drafted in the first 2 rounds of the NFL draft. So, but I
so
agree
even
with you. It is,
but even then, it's just 1, right?
And Kobe Prentice is there, and we don't know what to think about him. The receiving core is not great. I'll 100% give you that.
No,
which
but
is
I mean,
unfortunate. It's of where Alabama had been for so long with just pumping out these amazing prospects.
Man, it's just music in my ears right now. So
not sad, but interesting.
Well, this is going to be fun to keep up through the year as we track it and come back and make fun of each other for these picks we make. But speaking of, we can move on to the University of Arkansas. I'll kick us off here. I'm the only one with a pick for Arkansas. I have them under 4.5 wins. You do have Bobby Petrino come back as coordinator. A lot of people think he'll be the head coach by the end of the year. I think that's probably a pretty safe bet. If I could bet on that, I'd make it. But in the meantime, they got Taylor Green coming in from Boise as their quarterback. This is a really bad defense. Arkansas has been really bad for a handful of years now. So, really bad defense, and the schedule is really bad. I mean, I can just count off the losses with, Oklahoma State, at Auburn, Texas A&M, Tennessee, LSU, Ole Miss, Texas, Missouri. Like, those are all losses. So to me, it's hard to I pretty much said there's 4 winnable games here. And who knows if a team that's not very good can actually win all their 4 winnable games, which still gets us the under. So give me under 4.5 at plus 100. Anyone have any thoughts about Woo Pig Suey over here? The stupidest saying in college football.
Or is it the most interesting and unique? We should celebrate those weirdnesses. No, I'm with you, Eric.
Your inclusion right now.
I lean under as well, but not enough to bet it because some of these, it's just such a low number. And I do think there are 4 games that they will win on the schedule. And so if Mississippi State isn't as good as, I could see Mississippi State. That's kind of a toss-up game. That'll be less than a touchdown spread either way. But what if Missouri, what if Luther Burden goes out and we realize that Brady Cook's not that good? I don't know. So I'm not betting it, but I lean under. Losing your starting running back and your starting quarterback, and I don't think they upgraded necessarily with either of those guys moving out with KJ Jefferson and Raheem Sanders. So I'm not a big fan of this Arkansas squad.
I do have an interesting stat here from Arkansas that makes me kind of think about things a little bit differently. They ranked 2nd in the SEC in tackles for a loss or for no gain last year, which is wild. Their line is actually pretty solid. It's what's behind the line that is just complete trash.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can make a step up there, if the Sam Pittman, old Uncle Sam, can get his offensive line back up and running just a little bit, I think they've got a chance. Arkansas, they're kind of known for winning games they shouldn't win, but it's only 1 a year. So if they win the 4 that they should and they can pull off an upset, I wouldn't be surprised. But because I'm not confident, I'm not touching it. So I'll let you run with that one, and then we'll make fun of you later.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm all about it. I think that's a tough schedule for the Hogs over there. All right, let's move on. Otherwise, these shows tend to get pretty long. Let's move on to the University of Auburn. Hugh Freeze is a garbage human being. Pretty decent coach, though. Will probably continue getting better. They got Charles Kelly as their new DC, who is the DC at CU, and most people might be like, well, didn't CU's defense suck? Yeah, but it was he did some really good things for having literally 1 line of defenders at the entire season. So I actually think that's a really good DC hire for them. But Mike, why don't you tell us why you have them under 7.5?
It's simple, man. I think they got a terrible quarterback. I don't know if
he's right there.
If you can get past that, on top of playing in the SEC and one of their quote unquote winnable games against Kentucky, I think Kentucky is going to be a better team this year than people are expecting them to be, with old Brock Vandagriff coming over from obviously Georgia. So I just don't think that they're going to be able to keep up offensively. I don't think they're going to score enough points, period.
Yeah, I'm with you on the under pick because I see 8 winnable games, but only see 8 winnable games because I'm including the Iron Bowl, and I'm only including that because some garbage Auburn teams have beat Alabama in the Iron Bowl, and that's a weird game. So
almost happened last year too.
I was about to say last year it was almost another one.
Yeah. So even if they win 7 of their 8 winnable games, they're still under the 7.5. So to me, this is probably a 5 to 7 win team. Steph, any thoughts on War Eagle Auburn Tigers? Freaking SEC in their weird
long term. This is a program that I would want to invest in. Their recruiting classes have been amazing.
Yeah.
I do think, to your point, Peyton Thorne is so bad. I could actually see him being replaced by Walker White before the end of the year, the freshman that just came in, 4-star, highly rated, having great camp. If that happens, that could make them a little bit better, actually. So if Peyton Thorne sucked as bad as we think he will, it could be good. But again, I'm not betting on this one, but I would lean under, but no bet for me.
Awesome. Speaking of no bets, none of us have a pick for the Florida Gators. We can hit on them real quick, though. Pretty solid offense. You have a returning quarterback, Montrell Johnson at running back coming back, and Eugene Wilson at wide receiver. Defense is bad, and I just think Billy Napier is a really terrible coach who probably will also not make the season. If you're firing your coach mid-season, like I am going to predict Napier will, I can't see them getting above the 4 winnable games that I think they have on their schedule. So I'm not picking the under because who knows, maybe they put it together with some experience on offense, but I don't know. I just can't bet on a not very reliable team. Like they have some talent, but they're not like the complete worst, but they're also probably not going to win more than 4 or 5 games. Maybe they are the complete worst though. Maybe I'm wrong. What do y'all think?
I mean, their defense ranked 111th in pass coverage last year. And you're going up against some pretty stout offenses. The SEC is not really the conference that's only known for their defense anymore. And so I just don't see that defense being able to do enough to get over this number. But it also feels a little bit like a trap, so I'm still not touching it.
It does.
But yeah, I mean, their last 6 game stretches is just absolutely brutal.
I don't miss Florida being good. I tend to not like Florida fans, but I will say the SEC is more fun when Florida's good. And I kind of hope they come back and become like a powerhouse again because they're kind of a fun team to hate, right? Like that's how I always view Florida. It's like I've always kind of hated them, and it's always good to have like an enemy, like a bad guy. And I think that's who Florida is, like for me in the SEC.
I agree. And I mean, like, I think that could change a little bit with the East or the East and the West going away this year. Because for a while it was like the East was so bad, it was just Georgia. And so I think that the SEC becomes more fun again because it becomes more competitive across the board. But I'm with you. When Florida was good, I mean, as a Georgia fan, that game you had nightmares about it every single night, even, before the season started. So I do miss those games, but at the same time, I don't miss losing those games. So it's kind of like a 6 one way, half dozen the other.
That's funny. Yeah, I would love a good like Florida Georgia rivalry to come make its way back. Speaking of Georgia, we're gonna jump over. Stefan, we'll start with you. We're gonna save Mike for last because this is his team and he can rant as long as he wants about why Georgia's gonna win the national title. And Stefan, why don't you tell us why Georgia's gonna get over 10.5 wins?
I mean, Georgia is going to be favored in every single one of their games. It will take 2 upsets for them to not hit the number. With it at -122, like that's not too much juice. I think it's more. I think 12-0 is more likely than 9-3. I think this is probably one of the more talented rosters. I do not think Carson Beck is the number 1 quarterback in college football, even though he'll probably get drafted as that. Like I'm not there, but I don't think he has to be for Georgia to win a national championship. They have so much depth in all the important positions and in the ones that don't matter at all. Like they are just so deep. Like their second team would be favored in a lot of these games as well. So to me, the depth of the roster, the fact that there's 2 or 3 games that could be really, really tough. You have to go to Alabama, go to Texas. But I think they split those at worst, and then you're looking at an 11-1 season.
My bet's kind of funny because I have like some contradicting logic here, which is that like there are 3 like obvious upset spots on their schedule at Alabama, Texas, and Ole Miss. And so I'm like, they're not going to lose all 3 of those. Could they lose 2 of them? I don't know. I don't feel great. Maybe they do. Maybe they have injuries. But then I'm also like, yeah, but Georgia's going to win the conference. But to get to the conference championship in the first place, you gotta win at least 10 games. So, I guess there's a world where they only win 10 and still make the conference championship. But I just have them as the best team in the SEC. They're stacked. They're hungry from last year. Beck is a really good college quarterback, and I think you will see them. My prediction that you will see later is you're going to see Georgia maybe playing Tennessee in the SEC championship game. Because this year, before I look like a complete idiot, they've taken away all the divisions and it's just the top 2 teams, right?
Yes. Correct.
Yeah, so I got Tennessee like maybe even being up there at like 11-1 to do that. So, Mike, why do you think Georgia's going to have a 10.5 win plus season? Is it because your mental health needs it, or?
Well, there's lots of reasons. Part of it is my mental health, yes. Have you guys heard Kirby Smart's pregame speeches at all? Have you been blessed with that goodness yet?
A little bit.
I've almost run through so many walls just listening to that, and then them coming off of getting, not making the playoffs when they all felt like they should have. I think they're going to be coming on hotter and stronger than they have in a while. But back last year, I mean, he ranked third in the country as a passer behind Penix and Nix, which is kind of wild as his first year starting. So I'd stay fun with you. I don't think he's the best passer in the country, but I do think he does take a step up, and you take a step up on what you already did last year with adding Trevor Etienne from Florida. That's going to take some pressure off of the receivers. Yes, we lost Brock Bowers. Oscar Delp is no slouch. He can fill that hole fine.
Ben Yurosek is awesome.
Huh?
Ben Yurosek, your backup tight end.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Yurosek. He's a stud.
Coming over from Stanford. He's amazing.
Agreed. So, I mean, that on top of the how freaking big the offensive line is and the depth we have everywhere else, I think we're going to be hard to beat. I do think we win a game in the regular season. I don't think we go undefeated. I think there are too many good teams that you have to be perfect against in order to be undefeated this year, and I don't think that happens across the SEC, period. So I think every team ends up being at least a one-loss team. So I think there's going to be some controversy at the end of the season within the SEC rankings. But I also think what's interesting from what I've seen, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, they haven't released any official tiebreaker rules yet for this.
They're still working it out. I think they have the season essentially to work it out.
That's fair.
But the Sports Gambling Podcast guys had a nice little segment in one of their preview shows about some of these conferences are gonna have to go like 4 or 5 tiebreakers deep.
Oh yeah,
because you're gonna have 4 teams that are 11-1 or 10-2, or probably 10-2 or whatever.
I mean, we've kind of seen that over the last couple of years with the Pac-12 with Washington and Oregon and Utah and everybody. I mean, it's just gone so deep. So it's only going to get deeper moving forward as the larger these conferences get.
Stefan. Oh, you're a little laggy on us. That's why.
I
think we have a
do on October 19th. Because I suggest we hit.
You suggest we do what?
I suggest we go to Austin.
I will likely be at the Utah TCU game.
Depends on the CU schedule.
But we can talk about Austin.
Stave, you might want to try to rejoin the show. I think you're a little laggy for us.
You're struggling.
You're on the struggle bus. But the good news is that Mike and I can take us to the next pick. Both of us have picks for the University of Kentucky. We are both taking Kentucky over 6.5 wins. Mike, why don't you tell us why you think that they'll be over 6.5, and then I'll give my little spiel on it.
So last year they had a top 5 linebacker core on top of a hell of a good defensive tackle in Deion Walker. But then you add in Brock Vandagriff transferring from Georgia as the new quarterback, and I think he's just going to carry the team. Former 5-star recruit. He got lost in the depth chart behind Stetson and behind Carson Beck. And so I kind of feel for the guy because he never really had his chance. But when he came in the games that we were blowing everybody else, he was perfect. I mean, the dude was just an absolute stud. So I think he's going to come into an already fairly talented team and just take him to the next level. And Kentucky, I mean, they're another one of those teams that they have surprising wins. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they shocked the world and had a win against Tennessee or Ole Miss. I think they win all the games they're supposed to. So that's me.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think he might turn into like one of the best quarterbacks they've ever had if he actually like lives up to his promise. He totally could. They got to be excited over there in Kentucky. On top of that, they have a really good defense that's going to keep them in most games, even against teams like Ole Miss and Tennessee. They might hang around enough to be a pain there. They have a really good wide receiver trio, but I see 8 winnable games. And honestly, almost all of their winnable games are at home, which I think is like a huge plus for hitting an over when it's like you get to play at home the teams that you're most likely to beat. I think that's great. The teams you're least likely to beat are on the road anyways. I don't think is a problem for hitting a 6.5 over. Like you're playing Texas and Tennessee away. Like, cool, you're going to lose those anyways. So give me all the home games that are more winnable, and ending the season at Louisville like is absolutely great for this over. It might be my favorite over of the show, but I might take that back as we go. There's freaking 16 teams in this conference, and I keep forgetting like all the picks we've made. Stefan, any comments on the University of Kentucky before we move on?
I'm sure Mike hit on Brock Vandagriff. Super excited. I think he's kind of a forgotten player of college football. Excited to see him get the opportunity. And I don't blame him. And I don't think Georgia fans blame him for leaving. He waited. He didn't win out. So, yeah, move on. Get an opportunity elsewhere. I disagree with you about that Louisville game. I think Louisville's going to be really, really tough this year. I think that's going to be a hard-fought game. But, yeah, no bet for me on this one. I couldn't find 7 wins on this schedule. But I also
it's in Lexington. The Louisville game's in Lexington. All right. We'll argue about the Louisville game when it comes. We'll just bet against each other.
I don't even want to think about it. That's the last week of the season. That's sad. I'll be crying.
Let's slow down a little bit.
God damn it.
Vandagriff the crime dog. That's how I'm keeping the crime dog last name.
Yes, I like that.
All right. Cool. Let's move on to Louisiana State University. None of us have picks here. Does anyone want to start with why you don't have a lot of confidence with LSU? Other way, the juice is heavy towards the under, so it's kind of interesting that none of us are taking that. But tell us kind of why.
If it was 150, I would take it. I'll put it that way.
You just don't like it. You don't like the.
I just don't like it at 170.
And I think if you want to bet the over, just bet the USC game and get your money back early in the season. Like, that's kind of the hinge game, right? Like, if they win that game, they probably go over. If they don't, they probably go under. Garrett Nussmeier's a very good quarterback. There were people on this podcast probably who thought Jaden Daniels might not be able to keep that job in LSU with Garrett Nussmeier there. Garrett Nussmeier is very, very, very good. And I know not everyone on here was a Jaden Daniels believer, and that's okay, Eric Doran. That's okay. He's still not. I love it.
Jaden Daniels gonna get snapped in half in like week 1.
That is every time we talk about Jaden Daniels, you use that exact same line. It's perfect.
I don't care. Jaden Daniels is gonna die in the NFL.
I hope he doesn't. But
I hope he gets
like
that lifetime
LSU.
insurance. I hope he makes it long enough to get that lifetime insurance after like 5 years or whatever it is. I think LSU is just too. I don't like it. Like they're gonna start. It's gonna feel interesting because like they're gonna start 5-0. Like USC is literally scared to play LSU, and we're like trying to get out of the game. So I do think they handle USC because we talked about USC and like it's a transition time. I see 3 wins after that. And then I have a hard time finding a 4th one and a 5th. So, like, yeah, I don't see it. I think it does matter to lose Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors. That matters. Brian Kelly will still be good. They do avoid Georgia and Tennessee. Again, it's just too close. It's too close to pick the number for me. So, I just don't like anything about the total. But yeah, apparently a lot of people love this under. So, speaking of people loving the under, this one's juiced even more. We got the Mississippi State Bulldogs, Mud Dogs, Bulldogs. They're the Bulldogs.
They're the Bulldogs.
I feel like I want to call them the Mud Dogs.
It makes more sense because of the end.
No picks. Is there really anything that great to say about Mississippi State? Any thoughts on them?
Literally none.
That's literally it. They're returning. They are returning 2 total starters. 2 with a new.
They do have under 1.5 SEC wins at -130.
Oh, that was that's a tempting one.
Very intriguing. It was almost a side piece for me, and I'm still sitting on it.
I mean,
because you got to think that Arkansas is the toss-up game, right? And then because I would think Florida beats them. At Texas, at Georgia, A&M.
Yeah,
Dude,
here's the thing.
Really like
they can beat
it. We need to do it.
They can beat Arkansas and still win that bet.
Yeah, let's do that. I like that. That's an official bet for us.
We're gonna make that official because I don't see another SEC win.
No, and Arkansas could beat them. So I love that. And it's a look-ahead spot with UMass on the schedule. I mean, Mississippi State might not even be ready for Arkansas with that with UMass right there.
Yeah, we're adding that for sure. We're adding it on.
I'm gonna jump back real quick as well to LSU. They're minus 150 to miss the playoffs. That's another one that is super intriguing.
Oh, so a no for the playoffs. It's been hard finding no bets, but I noticed DraftKings updated a bunch in the last couple weeks.
That's where it was at, was on DraftKings.
So that is nice. I like that. I like LSU to miss the playoffs. Because not even the SEC can take up all 12 teams. They do have spots for other ones. So
watch your mouth.
It might not.
Liberty gets in.
Come to fruition. All right. Let's roll on. Let's talk about the University of Mississippi Ole Miss, which it's fun if you go look at this alphabetically. Actually, most people have Ole Miss as like the O, but whatever. They're actually the University of Mississippi, if I'm not mistaken. So home of Eli Manning. We got two of us over 9.5 wins. School best 11 wins last year. We love some Lane Kiffin on this show. I feel like Lane Kiffin used to be like an enemy for me, and I love Lane Kiffin now. I see, the biggest question to me is like you lose Judkins, who we also have loved on this show. He goes to Ohio State as at the running back position, but the rest of their offense is just freaking fire. And you're bringing back Jackson Dart, who I think is in like his 6th year playing for Ole Miss. I think there's 11 winnable games on this schedule. The only one that's not is against Georgia. And who knows, maybe they can get an upset there. But I think I can see them with 11. They're going to be 6-0 going into the LSU game at LSU. So I am taking over 9.5 because I do think this is probably a 10-win team. And it feels, and it's like, oh, that's a half-win difference. Why are you so confident? It just feels really solid 10-win team with their schedule and like the potential that they have. Mike, you have the same pick though, and another one. You found a nice little juicy nougat for us.
Yeah, I've got quite a few. I'm pretty big on Ole Miss this year. Jackson Dart is a stud. According to PFF, they've got the number 2 receiving core in the country with the number 5 running back room. Offensive line, big question mark, but they also, with that same offensive line, ranked first in explosive play rate last year. So you've got a lot of the same guys coming back. I think I saw something after I prepped for the show that Jackson Dart after this year will probably break every quarterback record at Ole Miss. So I think he's gearing up for a crazy big year. On top of, again, not easy schedule, but compared to the rest of the SEC, it's not super crazy. So I think over 9.5 wins is pretty much a lock, in my opinion. I think over 5.5 SEC wins following that is a great pick. I'm with you. I think Georgia's the only big question mark that I have, but I think they handle Oklahoma and LSU pretty easily. And then at the end of the year, with them being a one-loss team for this little side piece bet, I mean, it's kind of coming down to what's the tiebreaker going to be. And so at plus 260, I'm just going to go ahead and take the money on it and take my chances and hope it falls in their favor.
I love it. I wonder what there to make the playoff is. You'll know, like I have a very similar narrative, like pretty much what I just said about Ole Miss. I will be saying about Tennessee, but you'll just replace the players that I said.
Yeah,
and it's the same thing. So, and I'm going to be taking Tennessee to make the playoff. I wonder what an Ole Miss to make the playoff would be if anyone wants to research. Stefan, any thoughts? Are we building it?
Oh, okay, I'll tell you in 1 second.
I'm going to be building. I want to talk about how we're going to build the Jackson Dart statue outside of Ole Miss Stadium. That he's gonna have his own statue there someday as maybe their greatest quarterback they've ever had. Oh no, Eli Manning fans are probably
Jackson Dart kind of leading his USC career with like the cross black eye paint was pretty badass. Like pretty boy with a bad attitude. You gotta love it. No, they bring in Juice Wells from South Carolina, who, if he can stay healthy, this wide receiver core is going to be absolutely insane. Creekhorn at the tight end position, if he can stay healthy again, like last year was a struggle for that. But if he's healthy, he's one of the best tight ends in the country. Lane Kiffin's one of the best coaches. But man, if Jackson Dart gets hurt, the depth is really suspect. They have an amazing team built on a lot of transfers as well. And sometimes I wonder what that means in a long season. So to me, it's a really high number. I'm not comfortable with predicting double-digit wins in back-to-back seasons for Ole Miss quite yet. But I'm not betting the under for sure.
Wonderful.
I'm not mad at it. Ole Miss is a minus 130 to make the playoffs. BT Dubs.
That's not bad.
I think the way y'all are playing it with the over is the over on the win total is probably smarter though.
Yeah. Like I said, there's gonna be a lot of tiebreakers. There's gonna be a lot of playoff controversy, even with
because if they only get 9 wins, they're not making the playoff.
No. But I'm just saying if they get to 10 or 11, yeah. Anyways, we're moving on to Mizzou. Stefan, you had some comments on Mizzou. I'll let you guys kick off. I don't have a lot to say about Mizzou. I have some notes here, but honestly, ultimately don't have a pick here. So why don't you tell us why you think Mizzou might be a little overrated this year?
Yeah, and that's what I think it is. I think this Missouri team's very, very good. I think they'll win 8 games. I think they'll win 9 games. I don't think they're going to win 10 games, though. I think Brady Cook is propped up by Luther Burden. And if you bracket Luther Burden, you take away a lot of what this Missouri team can do. Their running back last year was one of the elite running backs in the nation, and now he's playing in the NFL. It's hard to replace that. Noel's a good guy, but I don't know if he has that quality quite yet. The schedule is not easy. Asking them to only lose 2 games, I think is an awful lot. I think Texas A&M, at Alabama, Oklahoma, even that Auburn game, I think could be really tough for them. Just not a big believer in Missouri this year. So I'm on the under 9.5. A lot of their games were single-digit wins as well, like a bounce of the ball somewhere else. Do y'all remember that kicker, like kicking that like 56-yard field goal as time ran out, like the thicker kicker or whatever? It was like a meme on going around that week. Man, that's only been a year ago. I'm so ready for college football, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, the one score wins is what I was going to bring up. 4 of them were at home against Middle Tennessee, Kansas State, Memphis, and Florida.
Yeah.
And then their defense was already suspect, and they lost 5 key players to the NFL. So, I think last year was a little bit more of a fluke than the start of something, and I think they get more in line with what they did the 2 years previous.
Ooh, don't tell Mizzou fans. They're fiery about their football team, man.
I would be fiery if this was like my first 11-win team in years, too. So.
Yeah.
I should have said what Mike said and saved us 20 minutes.
Yeah, it was. All right, we'll make the next one. Well, I don't know. I think everyone has a lot to say about Oklahoma. University of Oklahoma, I'll just dive right in. I got under 7.5 for Oklahoma. To me, this is a very obvious 6 or 7 win team, and I don't see them getting over 7 wins. I think they have a transition into the SEC that maybe they take, maybe they don't. Texas is ready to go. We'll talk about them. They're ready to compete this year. Oklahoma is not, and they are going to need some time. And I think this is a big transition year for them. 5 new starters on the offensive line is going to take a little bit of getting used to, especially as you get into the big SEC slate. It just feels like it's going to be a little bit of a transition. So I only see 7 games where they're favored. And then at Auburn, we keep saying that is tough just because Auburn could be pesky, even though we all don't necessarily love them. I only see.
But they're going to get a couple. They're going to get a couple.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
So outside of, they're going to go 3-0. Let's say they beat Auburn. That's 4. South Carolina's 5. Maine is 6. Let's say they beat Missouri because we just talked a bunch of shit about them. That's still 7. So I can't think of a better case scenario than 7 wins. Yeah. So, and yeah, you know what? Some people are saying they're due to win the Red River Shootout. Stefan, you wanna make your bold prediction that they're gonna win the?
No, not at all. But I do think the transition you're talking about, like this went from a Lincoln Riley offensive juggernaut to Vrabel, like we want to play defensive football. If that clicks this year, if last year was a transition year, and now like, oh man, this defense shows up, like, so that's why I'm not on it. But like, I'm not betting the over by any means either. Also, Jackson Arnold could be the best quarterback in the country.
I like it. He's still not going to win more than 7 games.
I'm not fighting you. I'm not betting one way or the other.
Yeah, I can tell. I'm the only one taking it there. I'm also the only one on this next pick as we kind of keep things rolling, which is USC, man. Give me USC, not the USC. University of South Carolina, under 5.5. This team will only be favored in 4 football games. If y'all can find me wins for USC outside of Old Dominion, Akron, Wofford, and Vanderbilt, I will happily change my pick if you can take 2 more. Anyone, any takers on that? Finding 2 more wins above that?
My only reason for not taking the under here is, as a Georgia fan, anytime I have said South Carolina is going to suck, they beat us. So I've just learned
to only 1 more win. That's only 1 more.
Never bet against them, and I'm good. But they're not playing Georgia this year.
They're not playing Georgia. Yeah.
So I can't find you 1 more win, but I can tell you that I'm not betting it just for that. Other than that, I'd be all over it with you.
Their new quarterback coming in, Sellers, could be very exciting. Again, I look a lot at recruiting, and I probably put way too much stock into it too soon, which is why I've loved Brock Vandagriff for 3 years. Speaking of Kentucky, but no, so I'm just not on it. But I fully support your bet, Eric.
Well, I mean, just sometimes the schedule just works against you. Like, even if you're going to have an improved season with a better quarterback, it's like you were going up against some of the at the exception of Georgia, you're going up against like the Titans of the SEC, and you didn't get the schedule that Tennessee has. Like that segue, you didn't get the schedule that Tennessee has. You got the South Carolina schedule, and it is a bitch. Like, that sucks for a team that's probably trying to improve. Look, University of Colorado, as a University of Colorado fan, I can't tell you how many years that I'm like, this is the year we're going to get better. And you just get slapped with the worst schedule ever. And it like takes the whole wind out of the sails of the program. And that's probably what's going to happen to South Carolina this year. We've hyped up Tennessee quite a bit. So I've talked a lot. Stefan, why don't you keep the Tennessee hype train going for why you think they are over 8.5 wins?
Yeah, I love this team. I think the number should be set at 9.5, which is maybe why it's juiced to -172 at over 8.5. But to me, it's just like a kind of a shitty investment return. Like, yeah, you know, you're going to make a little bit of money, so you put it away. And that's what this is. Like, it's not super sexy at -172, but this is going to happen. Tennessee is just worlds better than every team they play except for Georgia and Alabama. You know, those 2 teams are going to give them a fight. Let's say they lose them both. They could still go 10-2. Let's say they get upset somewhere else along the way. 9-3 at 8.5. I just don't see. Yes, NC State is pesky, but they're not that good. Like, they're okay. They're ranked 24th for a reason. They're not a top 10 team. So to me, this Tennessee team is just way too good, way too much talent. An offensive scheme with the veer and shoot that is really hard to defend. And if you try to bracket those receivers, they will run the ball down your throat. So I love Tennessee. I love them over 8.5. Any Tennessee bet, I talked about them as like a plus 1,100 to win the conference. Sign me up for all the Tennessee bets. I'm all in this year.
Yeah, I keep using you guys' research, but my next one would be like, I think this is an 11-win team. With like Georgia being the main loss, and even at 10 wins, they could make the conference championship. I say that because I think they beat Alabama in Knoxville. I think they win that game. I don't think they lose at Oklahoma. So it's just like, man, it's so like I can just see 11 wins is just calling my name. So to like specifically bet 11 wins on this team, I might have to go out and do it. It's also why I picked them to make the playoff at plus 170. We talked about this with Ole Miss. I think either of those teams could be in the SEC championship game. At plus money is great. I don't know. Maybe plus 170 is not as juicy. I think Ole Miss was what, plus 260 or something like that.
Yeah, it was plus 2 something.
Yeah, so Ole Miss a little juicy. If you like it, you get a little bit better payout. But man, the schedule is lining up for the Volunteers to make the playoff this year, and I think that it is definitely a possibility. Does anyone have any thoughts though of why maybe people are seeing them as like the 6th or 7th best team in the SEC? Like, is there? I feel like we're pretty hyped here. I'm having a hard time seeing the arguments because I go through like the power rankings and I'm seeing Tennessee a lot in like that 6 or 7 spot.
I think it's just history of the SEC, man. I think Tennessee has often had a lot of hype coming into the season and they never deliver on it.
Yep.
The number of times that I've heard Tennessee's going to take down Georgia this year and then they don't, but also when Tennessee shouldn't beat Georgia, they freaking beat us. And so like, I've been burned by Tennessee multiple times, but I think it's nothing but history. On top of a stacked conference this year. I mean, there's so many good freaking teams in the SEC. But I'm with you. Heupel's offenses are wild. They're bringing back so many defensive players that were so freaking good already. So I'm having a hard time finding an argument against it. I will say, though, correction, Ole Miss was at plus 220 to make the SEC title game, not to make the playoffs. They were minus 130 to make the playoffs. So this is actually a little bit juicier to make the playoffs.
Okay. And, so we're not too far off.
And if you want to get Tennessee plus 9.5, so just get an alt line on there, you can get at plus 138, Mr. Doran. You might be interested in that.
Yeah, I don't hate it. By the way, the SEC officially gave Tennessee the title UT.
Oh, how funny.
So they say that Tennessee gets to use it. This next team does not. University of Texas, UT. None of us have picks. I literally have underlined. Well, I have it like underlined on my notes that says no value betting on Texas. It's not because we don't think they're good. Just because we don't have picks, it doesn't mean we don't think they're good. I just have like no value here. Like 10.5 is too close. When you end the season at a rival Texas A&M that have been waiting for years to like for you to finally come play them and like beat they're going to want to beat the brakes off of the Longhorns. Then you have a Red River rivalry that you never know. I talked about the Iron Bowl earlier. You have probably a loss to Georgia, even though it's in Austin. You play Michigan. It's not going to be that. Michigan will not end the season number 9. But there's enough here that 10 wins is scary. If you look at all of like to win the conference championship, to make the playoff, there is no value betting Texas anywhere. Any thoughts on Texas and like Quinn Ewers, who I know Stafe was high on last year?
They lost 11 to the draft, man. I think anytime you lose that number, it's going to be tough. So I'm with you. I think they're going to be a great team. I think they're going to finish the year as a 1-loss team and just add to the mix of the SEC tiebreaker scandal that whatever is going to happen. But I'm with you. I just couldn't find any value on it.
Same. I love Quinn Ewers though. I think he is a top 3 quarterback in the country. He's going to be drafted in the first round. If anything happens to him, though, Arch Manning's right there waiting. So I think though that Quinn Ewers actually is going to have a better career for Texas than Arch Manning will.
I'm actually really counting on Quinn Ewers being a better pro prospect than Shedeur Sanders, because right now a lot of people are picking Shedeur to go to the Raiders, and the Raiders might have like the number 1 pick, and they're going to take a quarterback. And I would really love if they took Quinn Ewers, and I don't have to root against my guy. So I will be cheering for Quinn to be an Oakland Raider. I don't know. I might regret that too, because then they keep beating my Denver Broncos. All right, let's move on to Texas A&M. I have no picks, so I am going to step back fully on this one and let y'all talk about why you like the Aggies this year.
talent has never been the problem at Texas A&M. They constantly have such high recruiting classes, such high transfer classes, despite underwhelming and underperforming every year. Now you bring in Elko from Duke with a great staff around him. I think this team could elevate very quickly. They don't need to even be like gangbusters to hit at 8.5. I like over 8.5. I think they are a 9 or 10 win team. You already talked about how crazy that Texas game could be to finish out the year. They start off versus Notre Dame. So kind of a tough bookend. But every other game, I kind of expect them to be favored. And I think by the time they play LSU, they'll be favored. Connor Wegman is a fantastic quarterback. He's a former 5-star, number 3 quarterback in the nation type guy. He's going to get it done. Yes, they lost Evan Stewart to the transfer portal. Ruben Owens went down to injury. So we're going to have to see some guys step up. We may not know who it's going to be yet. However, the talent has always been there. I think Elko can bring this team together, and they have a pretty soft schedule. They miss out on Georgia. They miss out on Alabama. So, it's not terrible for TAMU.
All solid.
They missed out on Ole Miss. They missed out on Tennessee.
Right. Yeah.
It just keeps going. I'm with you, though. I think this is strictly because of Elko, in my mind. I mean, Elko had more wins in his first year at Duke than Duke had the 3 years combined prior with injuries. And so, I just think he's a damn good coach, and he's just going to carry him to the next level on top of the schedule. Maybe this is just because I hate Notre Dame. I wouldn't be surprised if they pull it off against Notre Dame.
Oh, I expect them to.
For sure.
Yeah. And so it's you kick the season off with that, you get a full steam ahead. And I mean, I think it's just, up and running from there.
So next week's college football show, not this week, we'll do a week 0 show this week. Week 1 college football show. We're all going to be picking A&M to beat Notre Dame in some way, right?
Like there's minus 148 right now. Minus 148.
That's not bad, man. Just
minus 3
at home. That's great. All right. We are
minus 3. Yeah, let's go.
We're high. We are high on the Aggies, especially now that Jimbo is gone. Jimbo's fine though. No one feels bad for Jimbo. Jimbo just gets bought out, and he's good to go. He's commenting on ESPN. Last but not least, we have lowly.
You said not least. I don't know about.
No, sorry. Last and definitely least.
Yeah.
The Vanderbilt Commodores. That was a good catch. Honestly, I got a couple angles here. You can still get this at 2.5 according to Stefan from earlier.
I mean, it's
today,
like minus 190.
Yeah, so if you don't mind it, but I'm hanging my hat here on Alcorn State, Georgia State, and Ball State wins. Those are all 3 teams they should beat. Those are not good teams. So worst case, I really do think you get a push from Vanderbilt here, and you're really betting to be like, well, I either get my money back or they get some freaky upset against Virginia Tech, or hear me out, Diego Pavia, their transfer quarterback from New Mexico State University, who loves pissing on his rivals' fields. Look it up. He peed on New Mexico's indoor practice field logo last year, and then took it to New Mexico. They're also my dynasty in our Ready Bet Action NCAA football league is New Mexico State. Anyways, he transferred from the Aggies to Vanderbilt. They went into Auburn and beat the brakes off of Auburn last year. I'm not saying they're going to beat Auburn. I'm just saying that Pavia has experience beating SEC teams. And why not give us a 4th win for Vanderbilt and Pavia, who I think is kind of this edgy fan favorite that people are liking right now. What about you, Steve?
I'm right there with you. I'm busy texting my kids to let the dog out because I can hear them barking like a maniac. So sorry about that. But yeah, no, I'm with you there, Eric. I think you spelled it out nicely. I kind of might do the 2.5 at the minus 190 just because I do think those 3 wins are kind of guaranteed. And Vandy does often not often, once a year, Vandy will punch above their weight and steal one. I loved Will Shepherd last year. He's now at CU, but they brought in a couple of other receivers. Vandy does a great job of developing talent, and then unfortunately they lose them, but they'll have someone for a year when they kind of have a little bit of a breakout. And so I fully expect to see that again. So I think Vandy can get 3 wins. That fourth one, we might be sweating it, but to your point, at worst, I think it's a push.
Yeah, I think we got that push. All right, that is it for the SEC. We made it under an hour. Mike, final comments.
Stafe, because Vandy often punches above their weight class once a year, you can get them to win a single SEC game at plus 110.
I love it.
So it's tempting.
Love it. I wish it was like plus 200, but I still like it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
If it was like plus 200, I'd be like, yeah, I'm throwing some money on that.
So curious, gentlemen, what is your favorite pick for this SEC slate of all the games, of all the teams, all the bets available? What's your favorite one? I'm really going to try to push us over an hour here, Eric, just to stress you out.
Now that we're wrapped up, I'm still standing by my Kentucky over 6.5 or shoot, I'm going to misquote it. It's over 6.5. I think it was.
Yeah, it was 6.5.
Yes. I like smashing Kentucky over 6.5 is my favorite pick of this entire episode.
How about you, Mike?
I want to say my Georgia pick, but I won't be the homer here. I'm gonna say LSU minus 150 to miss the playoff, or Ole Miss at minus 125 over 5.5 SEC games. Really is what it is, but
yeah, I think mine's the Tennessee win total. I think 8.5. I think they fly past that. So yeah, just curious where we're like most confident, where we actually want to invest some money. And then of course I'm heading down to New Mexico for that Jalen Milroe Heisman bet.
Dude, I'm going to we'll talk more week 0 episode tomorrow. On Friday, we'll have some more college football for you. Until then, thank you, Mike Smith, for joining us, Stefan Laco, and we'll see y'all again soon.